Welcome to the High Ground Podcast. I'm Stevie W.
And Callum.
And again, we're doing this remotely. So, Happy New Year to you all.
We're back.
We are back. And we are on Mandalorian Watch again, Chapter 15, The Believer.
Which is the penultimate one, I believe.
It is. So, what did you think?
Yeah. Well, I really liked Bill Burr when we saw him the first time in the, was it The Prisoner?
Yeah.
Or...
He was the one where they were on the Tantive 4 style thing, wasn't it? When on the ship.
Yeah, like the prison ship, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was nice to see him again, actually. And he sort of becomes like a good guy here, doesn't he? And we find out he used to be an Imperial. And like there is a scene towards the end of the episode I quite like where he's talking to that other Imperial officer, the one that's played by that guy who's a bad guy and everything.
Yeah.
And they're talking about like a massacre that they committed, and he sort of suddenly says, "Yeah, well, what about all the women and children that we killed and all this and that and the other?" And then he just sort of goes nuts and kills them all to the end. But I quite like seeing that. Like there are Imperials that are fed up of being, bad.
That's the code of honor, and
Yeah.
it's a really good arc for the character. And I like. I mean, the title is Chapter 15, The Believer, and every one that's on the mission, they believe in something, that they believe what they're doing is right, and they're doing it for a reason. And his speech to the Imperial officer was perfect. I thought it was Bill Burr Mayfield. He was talking to, wasn't it, Valin Hess? And I just thought it was, and the bit where the Mandalorian, where Mando takes his mask off, his helmet off, and Mayfield says, "I didn't see anything." And I thought that was...
Yeah, I like that. Like they're sort of, not buddies, but like he knows like how serious he is about the code about the living sea in his face. So I really like that as well. And they let him go at the end as well, don't they?
Yeah. He died. He died.
Yeah. So, in quote marks.
Yeah. And was it this? I wrote some notes. It's been a few weeks since we watched this because we had to have a break for Christmas, and it's like they had the Empire, the Republic, and they were all the same to the people. So he gives that speech about how they're all invaders on their land. These people see them as, so it doesn't matter if you're the New Republic or you're the Empire. All it is invaders on a land where you really shouldn't be. But
it's like that whole one government just replaces another. It doesn't, whether it's good or whether it's better or worse, it's still just another government, isn't it? At the end of the day.
And they go on about the amount of losses on the Death Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I quite like that. That was kind of maybe a nod to Clerks.
It was a nod to Clerks, yeah. It's sort of like going about how the plumbers and everything on the Death Star. Yeah. So that was good.
Funnily enough, there's a podcast called Plumbing the Death Star.
Oh, that sounds cool.
And it's a bunch of Australian guys that think of like I don't know, like the logic behind a lot of pop culture stuff. Like one of their most famous ones was how much would it actually cost to build Jurassic Park? They do stuff like that. Yeah. It's quite funny actually. Like, when you said the plumbers, that just reminded me.
Yeah. Oh, what about this is as an episode. There's no Grogu in it.
Yeah, it was strange, wasn't it? I didn't realise that afterwards. I think some of the trivia on IMDb said it was the only episode without him in it, and it was quite. Was there not a scene with him on the destroyer with Moff Gideon? No. I might just conflate that with like the previous episode.
But he's not central. He's central to the episode, but he's not the episode.
Yeah.
So, and what about the new paint job on Mr. Fett's armor?
Yeah, it looks. I quite like. I must admit, I really like the hybrid sort of armor with the tunic underneath. Like the sort of. I call it the Vader skirt, basically. Yeah. It's like the part that comes down from. Yeah, I think he looks cool. He looks proper like almost like a Clint Eastwood style, Unforgiven looking sort of guy now, doesn't he? Like proper Western bounty hunter.
I don't even going with the whole motif that seems to be running through the series. I always see that as being very samurai, and
Yeah,
with like with the black, and I think it suits Boba Fett and the paint job
yeah,
on everything.
definitely.
It was like yeah,
Well, I think the samurai and westerns sort of go hand in hand, don't they? I mean,
yeah,
Magnificent Seven was remade as a western, wasn't it?
yeah,
And there's a lot of sort of similar codes that samurai and cowboys share. I think cowboys are basically the western version of
yeah.
samurai, aren't they? Story wise.
I Boba Fett has been dominating for me this
Yeah,
series, but I like how he had limited screen time in The Believer. But he was still background. We're still keeping him in the shadows.
yeah,
I thought that was fantastic.
and it was good to see the girls as well,
Oh,
kicking ass again.
Cara Dune and Fennec Shand. I have
Yeah,
got such a soft spot for Fennec Shand. I mean, really got a soft spot. I think she's absolutely brilliant. So
I really like June as well. At first when I saw her, I've always before now I used to think Gina Carano was a bit of sort of, I don't know, like one of those henchman style actresses that you just like they're the bad guys henchmen, but she's a lot more than that now. Like I appreciate her a bit more. Like watching Deadpool again, I find her a bit more. She's really she's got a good presence to her, hasn't she?
I think I mean, she's not your stick thin.
No,
She's
you wouldn't fight her, would you?
she's got that. I think she's. I mean, even as Angel in Deadpool, I think she's pretty. She's very beautiful. She is. She's got that.
Yeah, it's like an unconventional sort of good looking, isn't it?
I think she's a stunner. She's a stunner. And I think Ming-Na Wen, she's got the secret of youth. She's
Yeah, she looks no different. I mean, I watched Street Fighter again the other day, and she just looks the same. It's just infuriating.
she's brilliant. I mean, I've got to admit, since we finished the run, so I'm still watching Agents of Shield because it used to be a double hitter for 8 weeks where I'd watch Agents of Shield and Mandalorian back to back. So so now I just get one hit of Ming-Na Wen until it finishes. So, but yeah, the interior of Slave One. You actually get to see Slave One.
Yeah, I mean, we only ever I think you only ever see the door, don't you, on the back in Empire, don't you?
And the cockpit.
And the cockpit. Oh yeah, in episode 2, yeah. Forgot about that.
And
I like the way that the engines and the lasers sound the same as well.
Oh, yes.
And they use the seismic charges as well, don't they?
That's brilliant.
I sort of popped at that.
Oh, same here, because if you listen to some of our other Star Wars podcasts, you'll know I'm a big fan of Episode 2. So for me, that was yes. I'm sorry.
Even for me, like I mean, anything even prequel related, I pop at now. Like it's just, it was good. I think the action sequence in this episode is probably the best one I've seen in this series so far. It reminded me, weirdly enough, of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull when they constantly swap between the trucks.
Yeah.
It really reminded me of like an Indiana Jones sort of action sequence. And I thought it was really fantastically done, actually.
The thing, you look at Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, they are ready. Well, I know Dave Filoni's definitely with the hats. An Indiana Jones fan, and come on, if you grow up with Star Wars, Indiana Jones is you're growing up with Indiana Jones as well.
It's the same family, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's sort of like you can't. I mean, maybe if there's anyone out there that wants to prove me wrong, feel free. But to my knowledge, if you're an Indiana Jones fan, you're a Star Wars fan, and vice versa. It's just
I've never heard of one or the other.
No, so it's. Yeah, I like the moral code in this. The whole, that like I said, everybody's got their old code in their own code of honor in this, and and I thought the title was perfect. I'm going through notes here that I made a few weeks ago, so yeah. Oh, what about when you see the Mandalorian in Imperial armor when he has to change?
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Like you can tell it's sort of almost burning him to wear it.
And it's not got this because it's not Beskar. It's not got the same power as his armor.
No.
It's just
Well, we know how great the Stormtrooper armor is at
yeah.
protecting them.
But you can still shoot in it, so you can't. They can't use. They can't use that excuse. It's just the they obviously had some bad batches on the clones and the human and the people that they have underneath the Stormtrooper armor that just can't shoot.
Yeah, I like how they sort of still kept that whole Stormtroopers couldn't hit a barn door thing, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're, I don't know, it's weird. Like in Rogue One, I thought the Stormtroopers seemed quite formidable in that. Like they seemed to hit more. Like the rebels weren't as sort of, because you never really see any rebels die in the original trilogy, do you?
No, because they're all
even the background ones, they just sort of. On Endor, I'm always thinking like you just see them hiding behind trees and stuff, don't you? It's just, I mean, you only actually even see one Ewok die, don't you? Like visually.
Visually, yeah.
Yes, but like I always liked Rogue One for like having the balls to show like, well, kill everyone off.
Yeah.
So it's nice, but it's nice to go back to like the good guys winning again constantly.
Well, they get in one of the last episodes when you got those biker scouts. And they're trying to shoot at things and they can't shoot. I thought that was a great nod in the season finale of season 1. But you know, I just it was a I thought the Believer was going to be filler, but in terms of character development and morality tale, I thought it was one of the best ones. And it goes to prove you don't need the child. I don't think you need the child, and to make it, because the child has been the dominating presence until of course Boba Fett.
Dare we say Force?
Yeah. So
like this episode's about trying to find where he is, isn't it? So like you don't we know where he is as the audience, obviously, but the whole point of this episode is to try and find where they need to go to get him. So you don't need to see him because you already know he's captured.
Yeah.
So all you need to see is them finding how to find him, basically. That makes any sense.
Yeah, but a lot of times they will just put something in for fan service.
Yeah.
Because you get people like, oh, it's got no child. Let's just go on the internet and see if they can digitally add one in.
Yeah. Don't tell George that, he'll do it.
Yeah. I really want George Lucas to actually direct an episode, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd love to know what he thinks of it. I haven't seen anything like. I don't ever know if I can believe what I read online about when they say George Lucas doesn't like blah blah blah.
Unless Dave Filoni tells you otherwise, and if Dave Filoni says something, I'll take it as gospel. But until that,
yeah, or Jon Favreau.
Yeah, people that are actually. I just like to see what George Lucas would do with a toy box that Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau have actually created, especially with the visual effects, because they're pushing forward the way George Lucas did. And I'd like to see what George Lucas would do with these toys. I'll give him a big shout out to Rick Fumiyawa. I think he did a great job of directing it. Yeah, he did. He's done an episode before, hasn't he? I think he's done 2, if I'm right. Oh, was it 2? It's 2 episodes. Season 1, I think, wasn't it? It was. So he had 1 this season. But then again, look who they've had this. They had Robert Rodriguez on board this season as well. So and Peyton Reed and Carl Weathers. Yeah. So they've got to share alike with directing duties. So, but you know what? I think it's I really enjoyed the episode, and it really brought it ready for chapter 16. So, out of 5, probably about 3.5, maybe. Decent episode. I think it's a good sort of lead in to the end episode. I think that takes away from it a little bit, the fact that it's like every episode before the final episode is always going to be a bit of a sort of, if the finale's great, it's always a sort of like, it's the lead in, isn't it? Always. Yeah, I give it 3.5. I think that's always really good. I'm giving it 4 for Bill Burr's Mayfield. I thought, and of course Boba Fett and Slave One, and so I can't give it any less than 4. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic episode. I did. Yeah. So, final thoughts? Just, I mean, what more? They can't do anything wrong at the moment in this series. So, yeah. So that's the High Ground Podcast's verdict on Chapter 15, The Believer Mandalorian Watch. Of The Mandalorian on Mandalorian Watch, I'll get this out. I'm Stevie W.
I'm Callum.